Hey everyone. Today's topic was suggested by one of you, a user who goes by the name of Clawless Cassowary on YouTube. And this user asked, what's the difference between boundaries versus being controlling? And this is a great topic because the more I thought about it, it can be rather difficult to tell or create a distinction between the two of these things. The more I thought about it, I realized they basically hinge on someone's intentions. The intention behind their boundary, or so-called boundaries in the case of them being controlling. So this is what I want to break down in this video. So in the first case, I've come to realize someone's boundaries are more so them controlling or trying to control someone else when those boundaries stem from insecurities. When someone is saying, hey, don't do X, Y, or Z, or I don't appreciate you doing X, Y, or Z because, and then you're able to decipher that that because is due to an insecurity. So maybe they'll say, don't go partying with your friends because I don't want you getting hit on by a bunch of attractive women. Something like that. You could decipher that boundary to them basically saying, I'm insecure about you getting hit on from others because I don't trust you to stay loyal to me. That's an insecurity. That is not a boundary based on like having high self-esteem and you just not wanting to be treated a certain way. Or maybe they can say something like, I don't want you hanging out with your friends of the opposite sex. Yet again, 99 out of 100 times, in fact, I would almost even say 100 out of 100 times, somebody trying to say something like that to you and communicating it as a boundary is actually them being controlling. Because again, they don't trust you not to cheat on them. So they want to limit that possibility by saying you can't hang out with anyone from the opposite sex because I don't want you, putting long things in hold. I don't know. I lost on the euphemism there, but you get what I'm saying. It's usually someone who has an insecurity like you leaving them or you not finding them good enough or whatever it may be. So they try to control your behavior by using a boundary. So there you go. That's what I've come to realize is usually what someone will be doing when they're trying to control others and they make it seem like it's a boundary. Likewise, we can do this as well, of course, so make sure if you're communicating what you believe is a boundary to someone else, if it stems on an insecurity, you need to work on yourself. That isn't actually a boundary. That's you trying to control the other person because of that insecurity. So instead of trying to control people, we should work on ourselves. That's the one thing we do have control over at the end of the day anyway. So don't try to get your partner to not hang out with anyone they find attractive or anyone of the opposite sex. Work on yourself enough to trust that they'll be loyal to you. And if you can't trust them, find another partner. Like for real, I don't get why so many people are willing to stick with someone they don't trust. If you don't trust them, there's probably one or two reasons due to that. Either they've proven to be unfaithful or they are that kind of player type, or you have issues you need to work on and trust issues pretty much. You've got trust issues. So yeah, you either have to work on yourself or let them go because they're not the right fit for you. So that's what you should aim to do. Now, as you may tell, if someone basing a boundary off of an insecurity means that that's controlling behavior, then when someone bases a boundary off of having high self-esteem and not wanting to be treated a certain way, not wanting to tolerate certain treatment, that is a healthy boundary. That is perfectly okay, even though sometimes those kind of boundaries can potentially hurt, because all of us have qualities that we don't quite realize may make other people upset. They may not always like the way we treat them, even though previous partners may have had no trouble with certain behaviors. But that doesn't exactly mean that we're perfect and our behaviors are okay and we don't need to change and work on ourselves and become better, right? So there will be times where a partner who has high self-esteem and isn't basing a boundary on an insecurity may just tell you, hey, look, I really care about you, but I don't like you treating me in this way. Like I've had prior partners treat me in that way and it's just not something I want to put up with anymore. Like I know that I've worked on myself enough to not be treated so lowly. Like that's not something I want to tolerate. I probably worded that not so well, but basically you get what I'm saying there. That's an example of someone communicating a healthy boundary. Them saying, hey, you showed up late to, or showing up late isn't horrible on its own, but let's say, okay, you have a history of showing up late to our dates. I don't appreciate that because that kind of conveys you don't care about my time. And I only really want to keep people in my life who do value my time, who care about me. So if you keep doing this going forward, please know that I'm not going to continue seeing you. That's an example of a healthy boundary, even though that can obviously be something we don't want to hear, right? Like if you're late just because you're not really focused on it, you're not, well, you kind of, to some extent, may not be caring about the other person's time to do that, because you should give them a warning ahead of time or just let people know. I mean, in the past, I have sometimes been kind of bad at this myself because it's more so the way that I choose to go to the gym and during the weekend on mornings can often throw off my schedule, but I've tried to adapt that by now waking up earlier so I can go to the gym earlier and therefore setting my plans to be later in the day. You just find ways to work with the people you truly care about. That's why a boundary like that is healthy. It's not a bad thing, even if you don't want to hear it. It can suck to be on the receiving end of it, but if someone's boundary is coming from them having high self-esteem, them respecting themselves, and them just not wanting to be treated a certain way that kind of conveys you don't care about them, that's perfectly fine and healthy. That is a boundary. That is not someone trying to control you. Because in a way, you can think of healthy boundaries as it has everything to do with the other person, and they're not so much going to care about, how do I phrase this to make it work? It's basically that it's all about the way they're being treated, and they'd be willing to lose you, to let you walk away if you don't continue to, or basically if your actions don't show that you respect or care about them. That's kind of different from someone who's controlling. Someone who's controlling may not be so willing to walk away, right? Like they're going to try to control your behavior to get you to stay with them, but they may not exactly be willing to leave. I don't know, maybe I'm not phrasing that well because that's not going to hold up 100% of the time, and I understand that even as I'm saying it. So definitely, for the most part, it really does stem based on whether someone's boundaries are coming from insecurity or high self-esteem and them just having a good level of self-respect. So that's what you're going to be looking for here to figure out whether or not someone is trying to control you or whether they're just communicating a healthy boundary. You kind of have to become good at deciphering what's underneath what someone is saying, their intentions. As I said earlier in those prior examples of like the controlling behavior, you can kind of tell what someone is really saying when they communicate a boundary that's a controlling one. And those examples of them not wanting you to hang out with people of the opposite sex, like someone who has high self-esteem isn't going to care about that so much. They might care to a minor extent, but they're not going to try to control you over it. They may just say, you know, I don't even know, I can't think of an example of what they would say, but basically they may let you know in some way that they don't quite like that behavior, but they're not going to try to stop you from it. So, yeah. Hopefully it made sense here. It is Friday. My brain is kind of mush after the work week. I hope that you got value out of this video for the clawless cassowary. I hope I answered your question, and let me know your thoughts on the subject, guys. Let me know what you think here. I mean, I just gave my opinion here on like boundaries stemming from insecurity and whatnot, but there probably are a bunch of other ways you could decipher the difference between boundaries and controlling behaviors. So if you have another idea, definitely share it in the comment section below. But yeah, that's all I have for you guys. I'll see you guys in the next video. Arrivederci.